Hello guys, Fru here. Welcome to today's relevant read. So guys, in today's read, we're going to be looking at this article, 4 ways to build seniority in technology. And this is coming from our good friend Jacob Harrington. So 4 ways to build seniority in technology. And this is very important as we're talking about career and we're talking about technology. You always want to be thinking about growth. You always want to be thinking about how do we climb the ladder? How do we go on to the next step? And with that in mind, uh, we can't just expect it to be serendipitous, right? We can't just expect that, we'll get into a career 9 to 5, 5 days a week, 4 weeks in a month or so, and all of a sudden we experience growth, or all of a sudden we become senior in our roles, right? And that, that's just some form of luck. So while luck has its role to play, we also have to understand that there are things that you can actually do to be constructive and be proactive about building your career so you can go on to the senior roles and hopefully earn more money or just have more responsibility depending on what you really care for. All right. Now, if your goal is just to get a job and stay stagnant in doing the same thing year after year after year, whether being an entry level DBA or data architect or machine learning person, that's fine. But if your goal is to grow, right, after 2 or 3 years, you become a senior developer. After that, you become a tech lead or you become a director or a VP and keep climbing up the ladder, then your calculations needs to be different. And the reason why I like this article, the reason why I like this read is because it gives us some of those pointers to hopefully inspire you to start thinking about how to treat your career and some of the things that you can start doing so you can start climbing up to the more senior role and establish yourself as a senior person in your department, in your team, in your company, or in the industry as a thought leader. All right. So this will be a quick read, about 4 minutes, and we're gonna go really fast with it as well. I think, as usual, I'll share the link to the article for those of you guys that want to check it out. I'm gonna make sure that the link is shared. But we're gonna get started with the 4 things that is talked about in this article. So the very first one here is a no-brainer, and that is speak at meetups, speak at conferences, speak at events, right? There's no better way to establish yourself as an expert than to speak at events or to speak at meetups. Meetup is a website, meetup.com, if you're not familiar with it, that allows people to organize events and they meet in persons and it's shared on Meetup and people can attend those. Or if you're just in technology, the field of technology, there are tons and tons of conferences, right? If you just go on Google and search for IT conferences, you will find a whole slew of them, right? Even more than you can even dream of attending in one single year. So then you can choose on which ones you want to attend. Now, this is not just about attending the conferences, this is about positioning yourself to be a speaker, right? So you can actually go there and speak. Just think about the last conference you attended, right? Think about the people who spoke at those conferences. Did you admire them? Did you admire what they said, right? Were they competent in what they were saying, right? More than likely, you'll find a bunch of people that made a lot of good sense. You learn from them and you admire them, and most importantly, you remember them as leaders, right? And if your goal is to be a senior person, your goal is to be a leader, and then you're gonna have to start thinking about speaking at those events. I can't overemphasize this. I know there are people that are scared of public speaking, right? Speaking in front of a crowd just scares people to the teeth. But you're gonna have to get over that. There are resources, there are books, there are coaches that are available that can help you if speaking is a challenge for you to really hone your speaking skills, right? And so you can practice, and that's why I love this. Meetups are usually smaller, right? Depending on the meetup, you might have 5 to 10 or 15 people or 20, depending on the meetup, and you can start from there, right? Where you speak to in front of 5 people, and you kind of build your confidence that way, and then 10 people, 20 people. That way, when you go to a conference and you're speaking to maybe 50 or 100 people, now you're more comfortable talking in front of people, guys. So there's no better way to establish yourself as an expert than to actually go out and speak at these conferences. It's very, very important, and you can find yourself look for these conferences and speak for. And even if there is no conference around you, your department or your team might be having a project, and at the end, you might want to do a showcase of that project, maybe go into production. Why not speak about it? Why not do a PowerPoint presentation to explain to the team what's going on, right? Again, that keeps establishing you as an expert. And the more expert you are, the more senior you can grow in your role. Very important. The next piece is to write blog posts, and I'll slow down with this a little bit here, right? In addition to speaking at events, right, you want to write blog posts. You want to create content, and I talk about this in one of my previous articles, one of my previous videos on the channel. You can check around to see which one that was. But the idea is, you cannot write a blog post or talk about a topic if you have no idea what that topic is. And same with just even speaking. You cannot go somewhere and speak about something if you have no idea what that thing is. And so being somebody who creates content, write blog posts, right, or even make videos on YouTube. That's why I make some of these videos, guys, is it forces you to expose yourself to content so you can actually talk about it. And if you're somebody that can understand content in a way where you have the understanding to go out and teach people, that definitely would do wonders in your career for the long run. It definitely will help you. So definitely put yourself in a position where you're learning about stuff and you're able to go out and you can write. And the platforms for writing content these days is just amazing, right? LinkedIn has the blog post where you can write articles and post that way if you choose that platform. People usually like that just because it's more professional. Or you can go on Quora and answer questions on Quora, right? Or you can go on medium.com and write posts on Medium. So there are a lot of options for you to go out and write posts. But the more you're writing those posts, the more you're putting yourself out there, right? The more people start having credibility and respect for what you do. Now, the next piece is write a book. I know this might be, people might say, oh, I've never written a book, or it's a little bit more ambitious, right? But still, guys, if your goal is to climb to the top, if your goal is to establish yourself as a leader and your goal is to become more senior, then you definitely want to do what seniors do, right? Write a book, and the book is a little bit more in-depth. It's more time-consuming, but you can do it, right? What is it you're good at? What is it that you know? What is it? What body of knowledge have you gotten so much expertise in that you have something you can share to the world, right? There is something, right? Whether you're a DBA and you've learned how to, some tips and tricks that you can share with younger people, put that in the book, right? Whether you're a data scientist, a machine learning expert, an architect that has certain ideas that you feel people might benefit from, put it in the book. And it doesn't have to be a 1,000-page book, right? Now you can self-publish on Amazon, on Kindle, 30, 50 pages, and you get the book for yourself, and people can get value out of that. And by the way, I have a couple of books on Amazon, one of them being, your game plan for lucrative career and data analytics. Great book, a lot of interesting ideas I shared in this book. People are getting a lot of value from it. I'll highly encourage you to Google and check this out as well, right? But these are the things that begins to put you out there and establish you as an expert and help grow your seniority. Podcast is another option. We can say podcast, or we can say videos here as well, right? So you can, the mediums for doing podcasts is abundant, right? You can start a podcast and interview people. So let's say your goal is to learn about big data, right? Why don't you start a podcast about big data, right? Talk about the history of big data. Talk about the different vendors that do big data, or the challenges with doing big data, or how to do big data in production, right? And if you can do that and you force yourself to learn and ask tough questions, right, then you really start elevating yourself, elevating your competency, and growing within the industry. Or you can even choose to bring in experts, interview them, take that information and share it. You can put it on YouTube, you can put it on podcasting avenues, right? Apple Music and things like that, and really establish yourself as an expert, right? And these things don't have to cost a lot of money. People sometimes are scared. Is it gonna cost money? Is it gonna what's it gonna demand of me? Guys, it's something that you can do. It's just a matter of making the commitment and putting in the effort to get started, right? You don't have to buy expensive technologies, right? As a matter of fact, this audio or this video that I'm recording today, right, it's basically a simple screen recorder and a microphone, and basically, me being able to produce this content, right? There is no fancy editing, there's no fancy software. I could do that if I wanted to, maybe at some point in the future, but the fancy graphics and such doesn't change the content of what I'm talking about. So don't let your lack of equipment stop you from being a content producer, because that's just an excuse, right? So you can always get started. Whether you're doing podcasting or you're doing videos, you can definitely get started. And then number 5, but not least, contribute to an open source, right? Apache is one of the big open source communities out there. I want to search Apache, right? You can go on Apache and look at some of the incubator projects. That's Apache Livy. Let's go to directly to Apache. Bear with me, guys. So let's go to Apache. I just want to go to Apache. The Apache website. So this is the main folks that manage a lot of open source projects. And you can come in here, find an open source project. I wouldn't go into it, right? You can find some of the projects that they're working on and be a part of, contribute to the project, or contribute to money, or contribute, some way that you feel like contributing to the Apache Foundation. So, and that's one way, right? I once worked with this guy, one of the smartest guys that I met, and at the time, that's when Spark was coming out, and he came, spoke at this event, and he was a Spark contributor, and people would just look at this guy like a god, right? Because he was that good, he was that smart, and he can show it, right? He's writing. I mean, I have headache just trying to understand how Spark works, not to talk about the people that actually implement the code for Spark. And so that's how you really start changing the game, elevating your competence, and putting putting yourself in a whole different circle in terms of your expertise and in terms of your seniority. So definitely think about open source. If you have the time and the capacity to contribute, you can contribute. And contribution doesn't only have to be writing code, guys. You can contribute by just writing documentation, or just there are different ways you can contribute. And that's my point, that you don't just have to be a programmer to contribute to these projects. You can just be a project manager, even, or product manager, and still be a part of this project. Or you can just be a tester and debug stuff, right, and still be part of these projects. But it's really up to you to make that commitment and take the responsibility to do that. So this was a great read, great article. Thanks, Jacob Harrington, for sharing this. I really liked it, and I hope that you, the viewers, got some insights from this, or some inspiration. The reason why I share some of these types of articles is to inspire people, right? 4 ways to build your seniority. Right, after 1 or 2 years in a role, you want to see yourself growing. You want to see yourself not just growing within your company or within your department, but within the industry, and becoming an expert, becoming a thought leader. And there's no way you do that by just thinking small, right? You have to start getting outside and seeing the big picture, and contributing to the great ecosystem in which we all are in technology, right? There's just so many avenues you can contribute, and it's really up to you to take that responsibility, take your career in your own hands, and start building yourself, establishing yourself as a leader in the industry. Guys, before we go, I just want to also call out that for those of you that have checked out the 3 Chrome extension for YouTube, great. If you haven't, guys, make sure you check it out, tweet about it, share it, like it, make sure 1 or 2 other people have it installed and get benefit out from it, right? What the extension does is it allows us to, if you're watching a video on YouTube, right? I watch a lot of videos, right? If you know, for those of us in IT, you tend to watch a lot of videos to learn different concepts. But once you come back to a video, you might not remember what the video was talking about, right? And you have to struggle to find it. Now, what if you can bookmark specific areas within that video that were relevant to you, the precise location, give it a description, and save it? That way, when you come back, you can remember it, right? What we say is it really helps you remember everything. So you have a nice dashboard there of what you did, and you can remember it. Or you can share what you saw with other people, or you can use the AI component of the extension. There's an AI component to analyze the video, to get keywords and topics, and see faces within the video, and just and timeline translation to over 40 plus languages, right? You can translate to over 40 plus languages. Pretty amazing, guys. So make sure you check out the 3 Chrome extension, install it on your browser, so you can get a lot of benefit out of it. And as always, to recap this, 4 ways to build your seniority. All right, guys, speak at meetups and conferences, write blog posts, write a book, start a podcast or videos, right? Podcasting or videos. You can do a video and then take the audio and make it into a podcast, or vice versa. And last but not least, make sure you try, if possible, to contribute to open source projects. Thank guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next relevant read breakdown.